Morning, everybody. I was trying to remember how long ago that I actually got into the 12-volt trade, and it's kind of scary. I started off installing CB radios. Wait for it, in 1969. Wow. Then 8-tracks, then cassettes, then the first car audio booster, then the first security. So if you got a question, I've been where you are, done what you've done. I got into sales probably a few years back, and cellular telephone signal boosters is now my specialty. So anything that has to do with weak cellular signal, I'm here. I'll tell you a quick, funny story. I had not been in the fleet business up until a year ago. And I happened to run into this sheriff's officer, and during his traffic stop with me, I introduced myself, and I told him what I did for a living. He said, well, that's kind of interesting. I don't have any cellular service in the part of the county that we service. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I've got boosters. Let's try a booster in your vehicle, and if it works, you let me know. Well, one thing led to another. We ended up selling that sheriff's department 20 of our boosters. Well, the sheriff that pulled me over, wrote me the citation still, introduced me to the fire captain for that county, and the fire captain ended up buying 8 for his fire department, who introduced me to the game warden for the county, who bought 3 units, who introduced me to, see where this is going? It's kind of like if you install one in a house in a neighborhood that has weak cellular telephone reception. Once that homeowner talks to that next homeowner, you're going to get the deal. So once you find your first vehicle, your first fleet to install a booster in, it's going to go rapidly. So today what we're talking about is specifically fleet installs. We can cover any home or commercial installation if you want when we're done, but let's talk about fleet vehicles today. So fleets come in all shapes and sizes. They are small little pedal cars all the way up to the largest 18-wheeler. The most robust installations that we do right now are in the fracking community, oil and gas, that kind of thing. We just shipped 1,000 amplifiers to where the tropical storm came through on the East Coast here recently. Why? Because the cellular network is probably down because of winds and rain, and they're not going to have good cellular reception. So our cellular telephone signal boosters in vehicles for people like insurance, first responders is critical. All right, so we know about the oil field. That's where a lot of our stuff comes. We also do law enforcement, first responder. We also do large fleets. We also do small fleets. So what is it that these guys all have in common? It is weak cellular signal. Fleet vehicles pose all kinds of issues that cause weak cellular signal. So what is that? First, let's talk about the things that they do within the vehicle. Number one is they want to use their phone. They want to use it for mapping. They want to use it for telephone calls. I had an air conditioning guy the other day that wanted to access YouTube to see about a compressor that was on my home AC, and so just regular phone usage is important. Next thing is processing credit card transactions and statements, right? These guys now have pads that you got to sign if you want a UPS or a FedEx shipment. If they don't have cellular signal, they can't complete that transaction. Many guys have come to my house where I have poor reception, and they've taken an imprint of my card, right? They take the pencil out and they take a piece of paper and they scribble over it. That's not the way to do it. So if you can improve the cellular telephone signal strength within the fleet vehicle, you can improve their ability to process credit cards, retail transactions, etc. Plus, in terms of law enforcement, you have internet connectivity, which is vital, both being able to run reports, be able to access their mainframe. Cellular telephone communications cannot be diminished. You must now be connected. All right, and lastly, ELD. Anybody familiar with what ELD is? Electronic logging devices. Those became mainstay in trucking fleets recently. Now, if an officer pulls you over and asks you for your electronic log and you don't have access to the cellular network, you may be challenged in providing him what he needs to be able to process your citation. But there's a citation in not being able to supply the information. So electronic logging devices that operate on the cellular network, and most of them do, need enhanced cellular signal. So let's take a step back. Let's talk about why we need cellular telephone boosters. So cellular telephone boosters are required because, let's go back to, if you take a phone and you wrap it tightly in aluminum foil and put it on the kitchen counter and call it, will it ring? And the answer is no. Anything that is wrapped tightly in aluminum foil is shielded from RF. I don't care if it's an AM/FM radio, a cellular phone, one of the old little TVs, if you wrap it in foil, RF communications cannot get to the device. So that's called a Faraday shield. So what does that have to do with fleet vehicles? Well, how can you get more shielding than this around a phone? Or this? Or this? Right? It is totally shielding that phone from RF communications. All right. So, question for you all. When you get in your vehicle, where do you put your phone? Likely, it's sitting in the center console. Now, it might be up on a mount, but likely it's in the center console. Let's think about it. In the old days, when we first got phones, we used to pull up the antenna, put it next to our ear, and it was sitting next to the window. Everything was fine. Good RF communications when you're sitting next to the window where the signal is strong. Then all of a sudden they did away with those antennas and they started mandating Bluetooth. When they mandated Bluetooth, we didn't have to pick up the phone, or we couldn't pick up the phone anymore. We had to take and put it someplace to connect to our device. So it was either in the center console or it was in a phone holder. Well, the problem is now the phone is down here and it's shielded by two aluminum panels here, a metal roof, it's totally shielded. And we wonder why we can't get good cellular telephone signal inside. And who among us hasn't taken the phone, even in Bluetooth, and held it up like this so that we could talk because it gets better reception, right? So whether it's in the center console or whether it's sitting into a phone holder, it's still being blocked by the metal of the body. So what we want to do is we want to take the strong signal that's on the outside of the vehicle. We want to amplify it a whole lot, and then we want to deliver it back inside the vehicle. But it gets even worse, because I saw this at a tint shop the other day. It says, hey, guess what? The window tint that we're going to put on your car, it's going to knock down your cellular signal. Metallicized metal particles are in the tint, and they actually reduce cellular telephone signal strength getting into the building simply because of the window tint. So it's not only just the body of the vehicle, it's also the window tint. All right, so which of our boosters which works with which of the carriers that you have? Doesn't matter. Which of the boosters works with your cellular phone? Doesn't matter. The good news is all weBoost boosters work with all carriers simultaneously. It doesn't matter whether you're on AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, US Cellular, Walmart, Cricket, you name it. All carriers simultaneously. All right, so before we get started, what are the questions that we need to ask? Number one is, which kind of booster do you need? Lucky thing about this, there's only two types of boosters that you have to choose from. It's an easy question. Are you trying to amplify one phone at a time or all the cellular devices within the car? So the Sleek right here is a booster for one phone, the phone in the cradle. And it is the least expensive booster that we sell. Note that I didn't say the lowest cost, least performing. It is just simply the least expensive. Why is that? The antenna for this rests in the cradle. So when you put your phone in the cradle, the antenna that is connected to your device is right next to it. It couldn't get any closer. It then takes that cellular signal down a piece of coax to the booster that then goes to the antenna. Make sense? All right. If I go to the one that amplifies all the devices in the vehicle, It's got an inside antenna as well, but my phone could be over here, could be over here, could be in the back seat. The further you get the phone from the inside antenna, the less gain that you're going to get from the system. And I will tell you that if your phone is maybe 3 or 4 feet from this inside antenna, these two boosters have the same gain, identical gain. If your phone is really close to the antenna on this booster, it will provide more gain. But don't be afraid of this one. This has significant gain in a vehicular capacity. It's a great device for the price for a single device. All right, so let's talk about installation of these devices. As you can see here, there is a plastic bracket that comes with these boosters, and that allows you to remove and reinstall the booster easily in the vehicle. You'll see that it's got a coax cable coming off of one end for the inside antenna, one on the other end for the outside antenna, and 12 volts. All right, the next question we have either a single phone booster or a multi-phone booster. The next question is, what kind of antenna are we going to use? This is the antenna that comes with most of the kits. It's a small magnetic antenna. It's about this big, that's it. Performs very well, but it's a small antenna. And the coax cable has to run over the rooftop, through the door jamb, down behind the seat, and then plug into a booster. It is meant for people that are moving from vehicle to vehicle, not something that's going to stay installed full time. If you're going to install an antenna like this, it simply pops on the top of the vehicle. Now, if you're going to do a permanent installation, which is generally a fleet vehicle that you are assigned to all the time, then we use what we call an NMO antenna, and I'll explain what that means in a second. This is called a pepper shaker antenna. It looks like a pepper shaker. And it's about the same size. And it mounts cleanly to the top of a roof. If you look at virtually every law enforcement vehicle out there, you'll see an antenna like this. They're very popular because they're very low profile and very high performance. On another note, if you are doing truck fleets, if you are doing anything that is oil field related, the single best performing antenna that we have is our trucker antenna, which can be mounted to the side of a vehicle, can mount to a headache rack, it can mount to a work rack on the back of the vehicle. It has all types of different mounting capabilities. You can see the mount that comes with it here has a 3H24 thread, and this antenna, which is awesome, and I'll tell you more about it in a minute, is variable height. You can have it 17 inches, 34 inches, 47 inches. So you can have it whatever height is necessary for it to be able to radiate its signal cleanly. All right, that's a typical installation on an 18-wheeler. All right, does the vehicle have a metal body? And does the metal body work as a ground plane for your antenna? Anybody ever heard of a ground plane before? Okay, back in the old CB radio days. So some antennas require metal around them in order to work effectively. That's what a ground plane is called. Antenna sits on a piece of metal. The metal actually works as a reflector for the signal. This antenna needs a ground plane. In other words, it needs a piece of metal around it. This antenna needs a ground plane. Needs a piece of metal around it. This antenna doesn't need anything. It is what they call an elevated feed antenna. It can mount to anything. You can mount it to a piece of wood. You can mount it to a piece of PVC. You can mount it to anything that you want because the antenna does not require a ground plane. All right, so are we dealing with all metal-bodied vehicles these days? Not a chance. They did away with metal bodies. So composite and fiberglass are very popular these days. Most of the fleets that you see going down the highway are either composite or fiberglass. It's amazing. Now, imagine that you sell a guy a magnetic antenna and that's his vehicle. Not going to do any good. Not going to stick to anything. Now, you could cut out a piece of round metal and attach it with whatever you want to the top and then pop the antenna on, but it's not the best antenna application.
On some of the navigation antennas for stereos, they have a little round magnetic piece with the double stick on the back. Can you use something that small for that magnetic?
You can. It really needs to be about 8 inches in diameter if you can. But let me show you. Let me show you an opportunity here. All right. So this is the new fleet vehicle. Those Dodge Sprinters that you see running around. Oh my gosh. That's the new plumbing, air conditioning, electrical, gardening. It's the tall roof. But guess what? It's a fiberglass top. So you got to be careful on a fiberglass top vehicle. And of course, the nemesis of every installer that's out there. Why is this Ford truck the nemesis? Anybody remember? Aluminum body. Nothing sticks to it. Try putting a magnet on a piece of aluminum. It doesn't work. All right. So let's talk about our new antenna, which is an NMO antenna. NMO means New Motorola. They came up with this thing years and years ago. What it requires is a 3/4 inch hole in the body. It's got a top disc. It's got ears on the bottom. It can actually install from the top of the vehicle, but you have to be able to access the coax. But when you're done, the large brass ring screws down and tightens up with a crescent. When the NMO antenna screws on, it provides a waterproof fitting on the top of the roof. Does the roof have to be steel? No. On a Ford truck, as long as it is metal, that's a ground plane. So this could be used on a Ford truck. Now, this is your NMO antenna. See the little pin on the bottom? That connects directly to the pin that's on the top of the mount there. It's spring loaded, so it provides some tension, and it also moves on it and keeps it clean. All right, to pop that, you're going to need a 3/4 inch hole. If you do this, don't make this mistake. Buy yourself a hole saw that's got a shim on the, so you can't go too far into the headliner. Yes, I have. Now, you can either use this type of 3/4 inch hole saw, or you can use a unibit, but you better be careful because it's going to go deep into the vehicle, and you just don't want to lose a headliner. All right, speaking of headliners these days are easier than the old cloth ones that we used to have to pull down. Once you pull the trim, a lot of these are cardboard, and once you pull them down, you can go ahead and drill your 3/4 inch hole. Once you have your 3/4 inch hole, you can go ahead and fish your coax in from the outside. The ears go underneath, the top brass tightens, and then the antenna goes on the top. The antenna has a O-ring washer. It comes with a little bit of gasket seal, so it creates a nice, tight, waterproof seal when the antenna is screwed on. Antenna can be removed if you choose, but the antenna is firm. On a 3/4 inch mount, it is not going anywhere, and it's good for car washes. You can whip that bad boy all you want, it's not going to go anywhere. And that's what it looked like when it's finally installed. It's a good looking antenna. I brought this. Petra doesn't have these. I hate to say that. Sorry, Claire. Petra doesn't have these, but this is the best mount for a Ford truck. This sandwiches between the third brake light and the body. And the NMO antenna, this is a 2-minute install. It's 4 screws to take the third brake light out, put the bracket on, put the 4 screws back in, you be done. Just Ford. Now, there may be others, but Ford was such a problem for me. The Ford trucks guy would say, I need to. Now, what's interesting about that bracket, I'm showing it with the NMO base on it. They make it with a small plate, so if you have a safety light that you need to run with, you know, a flashing light, or if you want to use a magnetic antenna, you can. The antenna will pop on because it's a steel bracket, and they're finished very nicely. They're great. All right, so let's talk about no ground plane antennas for a second. Short, medium, or tall, the best single antenna that I sell after the NMO is this bad boy. And it comes with 3 lengths of antenna mast that allows you to change the height of the antenna. So if you've got a pickup truck with a rack on it, you can raise the antenna above the rack. If you're mounting it on that bracket that we just looked at before, you can take and make it short and put a spring on it. You determine the height of the antenna. It comes with Loctite. The mast sections stay together. Only use the spring if you use 1 or 2 mass sections. On the third one, you don't need a spring. It's got enough flex in it. Don't put the spring on it. 17, 32, and 45 inches tall. This is the darndest antenna. It is magnificent. I've actually seen guys use these in houses because they're just easy to install. All right, some other awesome mounts that I saw. When we go back to this antenna, one of the things that I have over on the table, I can show you afterwards, it uses the same mounting base as a CB radio antenna. It's called a 3/8 24 thread. That's what all the mirror mounts are on the semis. That's what all the CB radio antenna mounts are, 3/8 24 thread. There is no electrical connection to the mount on our antenna. The coax comes out separately. On a CB radio mount, you used to have to screw them in at the bottom, or you had to have a couple O-rings in order to attach. This is just a mounting point. So when you are looking at a particular application, oh, I'm going the wrong way, sorry. So when you are looking at a particular application, you can mount our antenna any way that you want physically. It's a 3/8 24 thread. You can use any part of our mount to mount it. This happens to be one style truck. This is a Ford truck. I saw these mounts the other day too. This replaces the AM/FM antenna. You have to find a different way to do the AM/FM antenna. But if you ask a guy what's more important to you, your cellular telephone or your radio, they're using satellite radio most of the time anyways. The number of radio stations out where they're working, where the fracking guys are, they just don't listen to that. So you use satellite radio and they end up using these. All right, time to install our booster. So the good news is we have 2 different types of boosters. We have the one for a single phone and one for all devices. Then we have this myriad of antennas. You buy our cellular telephone boosters as a kit. You buy them with this booster with 3 different antenna selections, or you buy the other booster with different antenna selections. So it's not difficult. It's boost one phone, boost all phones, and then what kind of antenna do you need? So in this particular case, we're back to the bracket. Then there's an in the vehicle antenna. This antenna installs vertically. You can install it horizontally, but it performs better vertically, and try and get it as close to all of the phones as possible. Now, they show it on the front dashboard, and I like that, except I don't like the wire coming down. It's unseemly to me. So let me tell you where I mounted it. I mounted it to the back side of my cup holder, right? If I'm going to take my phone and I'm going to put it someplace, where is it? It's in the cup holder. Where's my antenna? It's on the back side of the cup holder. It's still close to the passenger, it's close to me, and it's close to where the phone is when the phone's on Bluetooth. And if I decide to pick the phone up and do something with it, we're still not separated by that big of a distance. So I like them when they're hidden. You choose what works best for you.
Are there double stick tape mount?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Velcro mount comes with it. Typical install. You can see right here that the antenna, the in the vehicle antenna and the booster, and it will serve driver, passenger, and if the in the vehicle antenna is centered on the dashboard, it'll serve the sleeper as well. I know that if you put it on the side of the driver's compartment, it may not get into the sleeper, so try and get it as close to center of the vehicle as you can if you're trying to serve the sleeper and the cab. All right, 12-volt power supplies. On some units, and I'll show you which, all units, with the exception of the fleet, it comes with a cigarette lighter adapter with a switch on it. Now you can cut it and permanent wire it if you choose to, but you lose the switch. So just make sure that when you wire it, it is on switched 12 volts. Why is that? Because the booster will drain the vehicle's battery if left for a few days. You want to make sure it's on switched 12 volts. On the new fleet vehicle that we have, same thing. It comes with a hardwire connection. Just make sure that you wire it into, am I in your way? I'm sorry. You wire it into switch 12 volts. That way you don't run the risk of taking the battery down. All right, so again, it all starts off with the same booster. Now, when we are done here, I have this presentation on a small thumb drive that I can hand to you. And if you need to go out and make a presentation to somebody else, you can take this with you and use the same presentation that I used with you, cut down if you want, to show one of your customers. And on each of them, I have a little click here for more information. You click there, it'll take you right to the page on that particular product. So this is a 470510. This is the one that we have sold forever. Comes with the booster, the bracket, the magnetic antenna, the in-the-vehicle antenna, and the 12-volt power cord with the cigarette lighter adapter. Same booster. This is the trucker version. Instead of coming with the little mini mag antenna, it comes with the tall 3-masted trucker antenna, again with the hardwire or with the cigarette lighter adapter 12-volt power supply. Super long cord, by the way. And new to us is the new fleet version, same booster, just different antenna. This is the new NMO antenna and the long 12-volt power cord. See the little blue sheet at the end? That's to protect the roof of the car when you're drilling your 3/4 inch hole. Isn't that nice?
Is that coax at least 17 foot long?
So it comes in 2 coax lengths. So that's 14 foot that's on here, and then they offer an extension. It comes with the kit, so if you need to make it longer. So you'll have 20 foot of coax. So if you're doing a trunk lid rather than a roof, more than enough cable to get to where you're going. But if you don't need it, give it a toss. All right, so now we go to the Amplify One device. This is the Drive Sleek. It comes with a magnetic antenna, comes with a 12-volt power cord that's got a USB connector on the back so that you can be charging your phone at the same time. It comes with the cradle. Now notice that the amplifier is separate from the cradle. The amplifier will need to be mounted someplace either under the dash or underneath the seat, but it's separate from the cradle. The cradle is very slender, very stylish. It looks great when it's installed, and it's got a single wire that goes to the booster. The booster is where you feed 12 volts to. Typical install. Take the same sleek booster, and rather than having the magnetic antenna, now you have the trucker antenna. Great for Ford trucks. This is perfect. If they've got a headache rack or if they've got a protection rack behind the cab, this is the perfect antenna and booster. In an 18-wheeler, this is what it looks like. So, our antennas. Mini mag antenna, sell it separately if you need to. You can take a booster out of one vehicle and put it in another if you don't want to take the antenna from vehicle to vehicle. The NMO comes with when you buy the NMO antenna, you need to make the choice as to whether you want to use a 3/4 inch or a 3/8 inch mount. Now the 3/4 inch mount, that's what you need to use if you're doing it on a rooftop. It has enough dissipation, it spreads wide enough that it can take a car wash. If you want to use a metal bracket like that one on the Ford truck, you can use the 3/8 inch mount. The only difference between the two is a 3/8 inch hole, 3/4 inch hole. If you're going into the body of the vehicle, whether on the trunk or on the roof, I always suggest the 3/4 inch. And last, the trucker antenna with the 3 pieces. And that is it. That is it. I have a bunch of business cards on the table. You're more than welcome to take them. Ben and Ed are absolute knowledgeable on all of this stuff. If you can stump them, they'll call me. If not, you call me. Always best to text me or email me because I'm always doing stuff like this and I always turn the phone off. So if you want me, just send me a text and I'll call you as soon as I'm done with what I'm doing. So what I'd like to do is open up the floor to any questions that you might have. Anything that I may have failed to miss?
The only question I have is on the machine-to-machine applications.
Yep.
Are there any plans for incorporating a direct 12-volt, like 12-volt direct wire power source?
So good question.
Now I'm kind of jerry-rigging one.
Got it. So the question is, not on the vehicular boosters, but we actually have, so we have a thing called M2M. M2M is an interesting market. ATM machine, vending machines. If you go to the airport, you see the Best Buy vending machines. Those can't operate unless they can talk to the guy that has to refill them on the route. And the only way that they can talk to the cellular network is by having an external antenna and the possibility of having a cellular telephone signal booster. So M2M is a great business. If you ever see a route driver, ask him if he needs cellular telephone connectivity on his devices. Meet with me afterwards and I'll answer your question. Anything else on this? Did I make it easy enough? Was there any questions that I missed?
Don't get rid of the 4GM.
4GM is still around. It has a new part number, 470121. What they did was they changed the inside antenna to this new, smaller vertical antenna because it performs so much better. But it's still around, still works great.
It's still just for just that one phone, right?
You know, so the 4GM will do all devices. It's not as hot as the 4GX, so it's more of an urban cellular telephone booster where the 4GX is rural and difficult places to get in. It doesn't have quite the amount of amplification of the 4GX, but at $100 less, it's a great value piece. Good? Man, that was too easy. Yes, sir?
Have you ever used that antenna like on the windshield?
Say it again.
Have you ever used the internal antenna on the windshield?
Oh, you know what? They caution us, so the question is whether we use an on-glass antenna. We also have an on-glass antenna as an option. What they've told us, the engineers tell us, is that the likelihood of your inside antenna chattering with that on-glass antenna is high. If you can get this inside antenna located in such a spot and you can put the on-glass antenna on the rear glass, and if you don't have window tint, it works good on some vehicles. It is a great opportunity to use that, and I get it, but there are times when that inside antenna is talking to all the devices. If it can talk to the outside antenna, then what it does is it shuts the booster down. It goes from the green light to the orange light to the red light. And obviously at red light, the amplifier is shut down. If you have that, make sure that you move that inside antenna around until the red light goes away. Great question, thank you. Yeah?
You were talking about that you had sold some of these units to police departments
Have.
in rural areas. Does that roof mount antenna have as good a receptivity as that mirror mount, as the load on the top of it?
Does not, but a lot of guys don't want to have that big antenna. It depends. So on the detectives' cars, they want to use the small antenna. On the Ford trucks, they use the big antennas. Now, remember I talked to you about the law enforcement guy? My friend now that pulled me over, wrote me a, okay. But I sold him 20 units. I don't care at this point. He introduced me to a guy down in Austin, Texas, who worked for Department of Public Safety. I want you to know that I closed a deal early this year for 800 units for Department of Public Safety. You never know where it's going to come from. You just got to mention it to anybody that, every time I go into a gas station and I see a fleet truck, I ask the guy, I said, do you have a problem with cellular at all? And if they say yeah, I just give them a piece of literature. By the way, that thumb drive that I have here that has this presentation on it also has a piece of literature for all of the units that I discussed today. So you'll know exactly which one, what part number, etc. Great questions. Any other questions I can answer? I like that third brake light bracket. That was awesome. I saw that because we don't just install cellular telephone boosters. There are other things that we install, light racks, etc. And anytime that you can install something to a piece that's mounted to the body, that's very creative. Yes, sir.
Just a little bit of variation on this. Is there any problem with out-of-state sales, and do we charge Oklahoma sales tax when we do that?
So you'll have to find out about the tax. Okay. As far as selling out of state, no issue whatsoever. We are licensed by every cellular telephone carrier for use in every state. If you are a citizen of the US and you drive to Canada, it will work in Canada. You can't buy a US booster in Canada because our specs and Industry Canada specs don't match up. But if you install one of these, let's say, I didn't go over the ones for the RV, but if you want to see an RV booster, I've got one. It's the same booster, right? Same booster, just a different outside antenna, different inside antenna. But if you were to sell an RV booster to one of your customers and they hauled that RV up to Canada for vacation, you can legally use it in Canada. You can also legally use it in Mexico. So all of North America uses the same cellular telephone frequencies, and our booster is good in all 3 countries, but it can only be sold in the 50 states.
Nelson, can you tell them how they can sign up to be able to sell weBoost? Do you have maybe a banner for their store locations?
So great question. How do you sign up to be a weBoost dealer? Ben's got the form. It's a quick form. If you're not on the internet, you're approved immediately. If you're on the internet on your own website, you're approved immediately. If you're on the internet and you want to sell it on Amazon or eBay, you're not approved immediately. I got to look at what you want to do and how you want to do it and why I need to add you on. That's a tough business. That's a tough business. I don't need 500 guys trying to sell the same booster. But if all you're doing is fleet accounts, you're approved immediately. If you have a storefront, you're approved immediately. If you want to install them, you're approved immediately. If it's on your own website, you're approved immediately. But if you want to sell them on eBay and Amazon, there's a problem. All right, as far as signage, so every time we print signage, by the time we get it to Petra gets it to you and you get it up, a model's been discontinued, like the old Ford GM, right? I hate discontinued stuff. So what we've got is we've got signs that I can send to you electronically. Just send it to the sign shop and have them output whatever size that you want. If you want an 8x10 for your store, I got those. If you want a 25 foot by 35 foot and you want to put it on I got them. Any size sign that you want. So Ben has access to all of our sign files. If he doesn't have the one that you want, I've got more. We can get you signs for whatever you need. I tend to think that if you're calling on an account, what you need is literature, right? Something to leave behind. And that's what I provided on the thumb drives that I have here if you're so interested. All right, that's it.